It starts with a single sentence, quiet, deliberate, and impossible to walk back. 7 minutes ago, William reveals something that shifts the palace's gravity. Princess Anne has had a plan in motion. Not for power, not for headlines, but for protection. And the person at the center of it is Catherine. The shock isn't that a plan exists. The shock is how long it's been hidden and what it suggests the family feared would happen. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. The way it lands isn't dramatic in the way people expect royal drama to land. There's no grand announcement, no public spectacle, no theatrical flourish. It's a controlled reveal, measured, precise, delivered like a sentence that has been rehearsed in the mind 100 times, because the speaker already knows the consequences of saying it out loud. William chooses his words carefully, which only makes them feel heavier. Because when a man raised inside silence decides to speak, it's never casual. It's never accidental. It's always because something has shifted behind closed doors, and he's decided the old rules of quiet obedience can't hold the weight anymore. And what William reveals isn't a rumor, it's a structure. A plan that has been running like a hidden current beneath the surface of royal life, disciplined, long-running, and designed by the one person in the family who doesn't play games with optics. Princess Anne. In this fictional world, Anne isn't the type to chase applause or gather attention like currency. She's the silent strategist, the hard spine behind the pretty pageantry, the royal who believes duty is meaningless if it can't withstand pressure. And if Anne has built a plan, it isn't because she's paranoid, it's because she's practical. She doesn't prepare for what looks likely. She prepares for what would be catastrophic. Catherine is the emotional center of it all, and that's where the dread begins to creep in. Because Catherine isn't merely a beloved figure or a future queen in waiting. She is stability in human form. She is the calm the public clings to when the monarchy feels fragile. She is the bridge between tradition and modern trust, the face people want to believe in. And that is precisely why the idea of a protection plan feels so chilling. Protect Catherine from what? From whom? From which kind of danger? The palace thrives on controlled mystery, but William's revelation suggests there is a mystery the palace didn't create for romance, it created it for survival. The most unsettling part is what William doesn't say outright, but makes impossible to ignore. He hints that there has been a threat no one is allowed to name publicly, not because it isn't real, but because naming it would give it shape. It would turn whispers into headlines, private fears into public panic. The palace has always believed in containment. If you don't give something language, you can pretend it isn't there. But Anne, according to William, never trusted that kind of denial. She trusted systems, she trusted barriers, she trusted preparation. And somewhere in that difference between the palace's instinct to hide and Anne's instinct to build protection, an entire secret plan was born. That alone would be explosive, but William makes it worse with one detail that feels like a knife turning slowly. He confirms that his own revelation breaks an internal code of silence. There are some things royals are trained to do, and others they're trained never to do. You smile. You endure. You deflect. You never admit the existence of internal fear, because fear makes the monarchy look mortal. And yet William steps over that line anyway, which suggests his motive isn't reckless, it's urgent, it's protective. It's the kind of choice you make when you believe the danger of staying quiet has become greater than the danger of being exposed. He describes Anne's plan as something designed to protect Catherine forever, and that word lands like a cold weight. Forever doesn't mean a press statement. Forever doesn't mean family comfort. Forever implies permanence, legal, institutional, structural. It implies Anne didn't just want Catherine safe this month, or this year, or until the next news cycle calmed down. Anne wanted Catherine protected in a way that outlives moods, factions, and shifting loyalties. A plan that can't be quietly undone by whoever controls the corridors tomorrow. And that's when the story stops being about affection and becomes about architecture. Someone built a safeguard into the monarchy itself. The palace atmosphere changes in the wake of William's words. People who are trained to appear calm suddenly become careful. Staff tighten their smiles. Advisors look like they're doing invisible math, because if a plan exists, then someone believed Catherine's vulnerability wasn't hypothetical. And if Anne built it, then she didn't build it for attention, she built it because the risk was serious enough to justify secrecy. William's voice, even in its restraint, carries the strain of someone who has been holding pressure for too long. It doesn't sound like gossip. It sounds like a confession made under duress, and then he drops the cliffhanger that makes everything feel immediate instead of historical. He implies the plan wasn't simply created years ago and left to sit quietly in the background like a precaution. He implies it was activated recently, not in the distant past now. As if something happened, or almost happened, that forced Anne to move from preparation into action. As if the palace didn't just fear a threat in theory, but recognized signs of it in real time. That single implication turns curiosity into dread, because it suggests the monarchy isn't telling the public a story of calm continuity. It's living through a moment of internal alarm. And once William admits the plan is active, the palace question turns from "what is it?" to something far more chilling: why did it need to be activated now? Princess Anne doesn't operate like a royal celebrity, she operates like an institution. While others manage optics, Anne manages risks. William suggests she built a shadow network of trusted staff, legal minds, and loyal insiders who answer to one rule: protect Catherine at all costs. Not with drama, with systems. And if that sounds extreme, that's because the threat they prepared for was extreme too. The moment William puts the words shadow network into the air, the palace stops feeling like a family and starts feeling like a machine with hidden compartments. Because Anne's style has never been about looking powerful. It's about being prepared. In this fictional world, Anne is duty first to the point of discomfort. She trusts structure over sentiment, discipline over speeches, and quiet safeguards over public reassurance. While other royals manage perception, Anne manages outcomes. She doesn't ask, "How does this look?" She asks, "What happens if this goes wrong?" And that difference is the reason Catherine's protection becomes something engineered rather than improvised. William describes it as a network because it isn't one person, and it isn't one decision. It's a web. Trusted advisors who don't gossip. Private secretaries who don't flinch when pressure rises. Legal specialists who can draft protections that outlive headlines and reigns. Security channels that don't rely on casual assumptions, because assumptions are where disasters are born. The more he explains it, the more it becomes clear. Anne didn't build a plan around Catherine out of fear alone. She built it because she understands the monarchy's greatest vulnerability: too many people with access, too many factions with motives, too many quiet hands capable of nudging events in directions the public will never see until it's too late. And secrecy becomes the first line of defense. Not because secrecy is glamorous, but because secrecy is survival. Fewer people know, fewer people leak. Fewer people leak, fewer people can sabotage. William makes it sound almost clinical, and that's what chills the spine. This isn't protection made of comforting words and warm family unity. This is protection built like a vault: layers, keys, approvals, and contingency routes. Anne keeps the circle small, not because she distrusts everyone, but because she knows how the palace works when it feels threatened. It doesn't always attack openly. Sometimes it delays. Sometimes it redirects. Sometimes it misplaces a request and calls it an oversight. And when something is precious enough like Catherine, the only safe assumption is that someone, somewhere, might try to control the narrative by controlling her. That's what raises the emotional stakes beyond gossip. Catherine isn't just a person in this story, she's stability symbolized. She's the future that people want to believe is safe. She's the calm face that keeps the monarchy from looking brittle. And William makes it painfully clear that stability isn't only threatened by the obvious enemies outside the gates. It can be threatened by internal tremors too, by rivalries, resentments, ambition disguised as service, and the quiet hunger to influence what Catherine represents. When someone becomes a symbol, they become a target, even when they never ask to be one. But this is where the story gets darker, because William hints not everyone wanted Catherine protected this way. Internal opposition doesn't always look like cruelty. Sometimes it looks like concern, like objections about precedent, like warnings about optics, like complaints that extra protection makes the institution look afraid. And beneath those objections is something sharper. Protection creates boundaries, and boundaries block access. If Anne's network tightens around Catherine, it changes who can reach her, who can shape her schedule, who can steer her public image, who can whisper into her ear when the cameras aren't rolling. That kind of control shift makes enemies quietly, not the loud kind, but the kind that smile while they plan. And then the forever element begins to emerge. William doesn't give every detail, but the implication is heavy. Anne didn't just arrange extra caution. She built legal frameworks, locked in safeguards that can't be undone with a casual instruction or a new staff reshuffle. The kind of structures that persist even if people change positions, even if loyalties shift, even if the palace tries to pretend the risk was overstated. That's why the network is so controversial in the first place. Because it turns Catherine's safety from a preference into a system. And systems don't care who is irritated by them. William's tone tightens as he reaches the part he clearly knows is most explosive. Because the palace doesn't like the idea that one royal, no matter how dutiful, could build a parallel structure of influence. And that's when he drops the cliffhanger that changes everything. Anne didn't act alone. Someone senior signed off quietly. Not publicly. Not in a way that can be denied without consequences. Quiet approval, given behind closed doors, meaning the network wasn't a rogue operation. It was sanctioned. It was endorsed. It was built with the knowledge that the danger wasn't hypothetical, it was real enough to justify a hidden shield around the future queen. And suddenly, the shadow network doesn't just feel like Anne's plan. It feels like the palace's confession, one they never intended the public to hear. Because if someone senior approved Anne's network, then Catherine's protection wasn't just a precaution, it was a response to a danger the palace already recognized. Every secret plan has a trigger, one moment when the world stops feeling safe. William hints there was a night when conversations turned clipped, corridors went quiet, and decisions were made without memos. Not because of gossip, because of risk. Catherine didn't demand protection. Protection was built around her like a shield. And the most terrifying detail? The palace believed the threat wouldn't fade with time. William's words pull the story backward into that night, the night the palace stopped pretending everything was fine. It wasn't a public crisis. No sirens, no headlines, no official schedule changes anyone could point to. It was something subtler and far more frightening, a shift in behavior. Conversations became shorter, careful, coded. People who normally spoke freely suddenly chose each word like it might be replayed later. Doors that were usually open felt heavier, more guarded, not because of gossip, because of risk. In this fictional world, the palace recognized a danger that couldn't be managed with smiles, and once that recognition set in, the old habit of denial broke apart like thin glass. Catherine remains at the emotional center, but not as the architect of the protection, she's the reason for it. William suggests she was kept insulated, not out of disrespect, but out of a desperate instinct to preserve her calm. That's the cruel irony. The more valuable Catherine's composure becomes to the monarchy, the more the palace tries to protect it by hiding the very truth that would fracture it. While Catherine continues her duties with controlled grace, Other people begin making decisions around her life as if they're building a barrier she never asked for. Protection wraps around her quietly, route changes nobody explains. Meetings that suddenly become optional, new layers of staff coordination that appear without announcement. Catherine doesn't demand it. She doesn't even publicly acknowledge it. But William's tone makes it clear. She doesn't have to. The shield was built because others were afraid of what could reach her. And that's where the story turns darker, because William implies the threat wasn't only outside the palace. It was internal as much as external. Betrayal potential. The most poisonous kind of danger, someone with access, someone with authority, someone who wouldn't look suspicious because they belong. In this world, the palace becomes paranoid, not in a loud way, but in a structured way. Permissions tighten, information gets rationed, conversations move from email to whispers. Anne's instinct kicks in exactly when the palace's instinct would normally be to smooth things over. She doesn't smooth. She formalizes. She knows that once the narrative starts shifting, once the public story begins to wobble, protection must be locked in before the system starts prioritizing image over safety. That's when the paper trail begins, not the public kind, but the kind created in secrecy. Notes that aren't filed where curious eyes can find them. Agreements that don't travel through too many hands. Instructions given through trusted channels rather than broad briefings. William hints at it carefully, because even describing this kind of hidden paperwork feels dangerous. In the royal world, paper is power. Paper is proof. Paper is the difference between "we never said that" and "it's written right here." Anne understands that better than anyone, and she moves like someone building a permanent boundary with ink before anyone can talk her out of it, before anyone can reframe the risk into something more comfortable. And then the hook tightens into its most chilling detail. William implies the trigger involved someone trusted. Not a stranger, not a faceless threat. Someone close enough that the palace couldn't simply ban them without explaining why. Someone whose presence would normally signal safety, but that night, their presence became the reason the palace went quiet. William doesn't name them, yet the implication hangs there, heavy and brutal. Catherine's safety became negotiable in a room where it should have been sacred. That's the moment William admits something else, something that explains why he spoke 7 minutes ago at all. He didn't reveal Anne's plan because he wanted attention. He revealed it because something shifted again, and silence started to feel like complicity. The trigger night wasn't just history. It was a warning that never fully ended. And when William felt the palace drifting back toward comfortable denial, he reached a breaking point. Protective panic collided with moral pressure. He realized that keeping the plan secret might protect Catherine physically, but it was also quietly stealing her right to know what decisions were being made around her name. But in the royal world, exposing a protective plan is like exposing a weakness. It tells enemies where the shield is, it tells insiders where the fear is, and it tells Catherine something even more painful. People have been making life or legacy decisions behind her back. William's confession carries personal cost because he knows who he's challenging. He risks conflict with Anne, the very person who built the protection. He risks backlash from senior courtiers who believe secrecy is the monarchy's lifeblood. And he risks setting off the exact storm Anne tried to prevent. Because once the plan is spoken about, it becomes something others can attack, undermine, or twist into scandal. The danger of disclosure is immediate. Scrutiny invites countermoves. If factions exist, they now know where to push. If opposition exists, they now know what to discredit. And emotionally, the fallout is even worse. Catherine's trust, her faith that the people around her are honest, could fracture under the weight of this revelation. William knows that. He speaks anyway. Because in his mind, the greater betrayal would be letting Catherine remain the centerpiece of a plan she never consented to, while the palace congratulates itself for protecting her. Then the warning arrives, like a cold hand on the back of the neck. You've started something you can't control. It doesn't sound like a threat at first. It sounds like a fact. Because once the palace decides you've said too much, it doesn't argue with you, it rebrands you. And if the trigger involved someone trusted, the next question becomes brutal. Who inside the palace made Catherine's safety feel negotiable? Forever isn't a word royals use lightly. It implies contracts, protections, mechanisms that survive moods, headlines, even reigns. William reveals Anne's plan wasn't just emotional, it was engineered. Something was put in writing that can't be quietly reversed, and that's why certain people are furious. Because this isn't Catherine being protected by goodwill. This is Catherine being protected by structure, and structure threatens anyone who profits from chaos. William doesn't describe the forever clause like a romantic promise. He describes it like a lock clicking into place, a legal and institutional safeguard designed to outlast individuals, outlast tempers, outlast changing loyalties, even outlast the comfort of pretending everything is fine. In this fictional world, Anne's logic is brutally simple. People change, factions rise and fall, and sometimes a palace can wake up under new priorities without ever admitting it. So if Catherine must be protected, she must be protected beyond politics, beyond personality shifts, beyond whoever happens to be whispering closest to the throne at any given moment. Not a favor, not a temporary arrangement, a structure. That's why it's controversial. Because structure reduces flexibility. It limits what the palace power brokers can quietly adjust when they don't like the direction of a story. It creates boundaries around access who can influence Catherine's schedule, who can shape her public image, who can manage her presence for strategic advantage. And inside the monarchy, control of access is control of power. So the moment Anne's plan becomes real, it becomes a threat to anyone who built their influence on proximity, on ambiguity, on being able to slide rules around like furniture. The emotional weight hits hardest when William explains what this does to Catherine. It turns her into both symbol and battleground at once. On the surface, she is protected. Beneath the surface, she becomes the center of a quiet war between two instincts, the instinct to keep her safe and the instinct to keep her controllable. Because safety in a palace isn't always gentle. Sometimes safety comes with isolation. Sometimes protection becomes a cage disguised as care. And William's fear isn't only that Catherine might be targeted, it's that she might be surrounded so tightly that she can't tell whether she's being defended or directed. Then comes the twist that makes the forever word feel even heavier. The clause doesn't just shield Catherine. It protects her children's future too. That's when the stakes stop being about one person and become about succession, stability, and the next generation's right to exist without being leveraged. It implies Anne built a framework that prevents certain games from being played again, games of access, games of narrative pressure, games of quiet intimidation. And if that's true, it explains the fury, because anyone who profits from chaos, anyone who thrives in ambiguity, cannot thrive when the rules are nailed to the floor. William's voice tightens when he reaches the part he knows will ignite the palace if it ever becomes public, the signatures. He hints the document isn't signed by who people expect. Not just a lone Anne acting on instinct, but names that imply approval from higher-ups, silent, careful, deliberate. Unexpected signatures don't just validate the plan, they reveal a coalition. A group that agreed, behind closed doors, that Catherine's vulnerability was too dangerous to leave to chance. And that is where the dread deepens. Because if a coalition formed, it formed against something, some threat they couldn't name aloud. And that's exactly when the palace begins to divide, not dramatically, not publicly, but with the cold precision of a system protecting itself. It doesn't divide with shouting. It divides with invitations that stop arriving, with calls that go unanswered, with smiles that don't reach the eyes. William's revelation triggers a split, those who see Anne's plan as essential, and those who see it as an insult, an accusation that the palace can't be trusted. And the ugliest question begins spreading in silence, Who benefits if Catherine stays vulnerable? Staff become collateral instantly, forced to choose camps discreetly, without ever admitting camps exist. Anne's allies tighten the circle, information becomes rationed, shared only with those who have proven they won't flinch. Every update becomes need to know, every meeting becomes smaller, every detail becomes controlled. On the other side, opponents launch a whisper campaign that sounds polite, but bites like poison, overreach, paranoia, control. They don't have to disprove Anne's plan. They only have to make it seem unreasonable. Because if the plan looks extreme, the people behind it can be framed as unstable, and once that label sticks, the palace can justify dismantling protections for unity. William finds himself cornered in the most cruelly royal way: protect Catherine or protect institutional calm. Because the institution's reflex is always the same when something threatens unity: silence it, soften it, reframe it. But William knows calm can be a mask for danger. And Catherine, caught in the centre, risks becoming isolated by the very protection designed to save her. The palace can turn care into containment without ever saying the word. Then the sabotage begins, quiet and procedural. Someone tries to undermine the forever clause not by confronting it head-on, but by suffocating it with process. Requests for clarification, delays, routine reviews, administrative friction that looks harmless until you realize it's designed to make a safeguard fail at the exact moment it's needed. And just as Anne begins to sense the pressure changing direction, just as she realizes this is no longer debate, but counter-operation, she receives a warning that makes her blood run cold. A counter-plan is moving. Not rumors, not feelings. Movement. Paperwork. Meetings. Quiet alignment. Because once a counterplan starts moving in palace corridors, protection becomes a race, and whoever controls the paperwork controls the future. And if unexpected signatures exist, then the plan wasn't a rogue act, it was a silent coalition formed against a threat they couldn't name aloud. There's a moment when even hardened royals stop playing polite. Anne reaches it when she realizes Catherine is being managed, not protected. Managed. And Anne doesn't negotiate with that. She draws a line so sharp it threatens to slice through the entire palace hierarchy. William's revelation suggests Anne made a move that night that didn't look like rebellion until you understood what it could expose and who it could destroy. By the time Anne moves, the palace has already done what it always does best: rearranged reality without leaving fingerprints. Catherine's calendar becomes adjusted. Her access becomes streamlined. Her words are guided. And it's all dressed up as care, as caution, as duty. But Anne sees through it in an instant, because she knows the difference between protection and control. Protection keeps you safe. Management keeps you useful. And the moment Catherine's life starts being shaped for convenience rather than security, Anne reaches the point where politeness becomes dangerous. So she issues an ultimatum, internally quiet, surgical, impossible to misinterpret. No more handling Catherine's narrative. No more smoothing her emotions into palatable headlines. No more using her composure as a shield for other people's chaos. Anne doesn't shout. She doesn't accuse in public. She simply draws the boundary and makes it clear that if the palace insists on treating Catherine like an asset instead of a human being, then Anne will use the one power the system fears most: formal visibility. Not tabloids, not scandal, legal and institutional channels, paper trails, official safeguards, mechanisms that don't depend on who's smiling in which room. She is telling them, in plain terms, that the era of informal manipulation ends now, because if it doesn't, she will force the truth into a place where it can't be quietly buried. The palace panics, because visibility is the enemy. The monarchy survives by controlling what is seen, what is said, what is understood without being stated. Anne's ultimatum threatens to drag private methods into formal record. And once something becomes record, it becomes accountability. That's why people begin moving fast and speaking softly. Meetings tighten. Emails become shorter. Names stop being used. The air fills with cautious obedience, not because everyone agrees with Anne, but because everyone understands what her move could expose. It wouldn't just reveal a disagreement. It would reveal how the palace actually functions when it thinks it's protecting itself. William, watching it unfold, feels the most bitter betrayal of all. Not only from the people shaping Catherine's life, but from the image-first machine that makes him feel powerful in public and powerless in private. He can't unsee it now. The institution doesn't always protect the people inside it. Sometimes it protects the story, even if the people suffer quietly. And Catherine, still composed on the outside, becomes the emotional heart of the tragedy because everyone keeps deciding for her, around her, while she continues to carry herself like the calm center they demand she be. Anne references precedent with a line that cuts straight through the palace's excuses. This was never meant to be revisited. It's not nostalgia, it's warning. Because Anne remembers what it cost the last time the monarchy tried to manage a woman into silence while claiming it was for unity. She remembers how quickly private pressure becomes public catastrophe, and she refuses to let Catherine become the next lesson the palace pretends it never learned. Then comes the major twist, the one William hints at, with a heaviness that suggests he's terrified to say too much. Anne implies Catherine's vulnerability benefits a specific faction. Not just random incompetence, not just overprotective caution. A pattern. A strategy. People who gain influence when Catherine is isolated, when her access is controlled, when her voice is filtered. The names remain unspoken, but the intent is obvious. If Catherine stays manageable, other forces inside the palace remain comfortable. And comfort, in royal politics, is often built on someone else's silence. That implication detonates the tension, because now the conflict isn't merely about safeguarding Catherine. It's about power, who gets to be close, who gets to speak for her, who gets to shape the future through the present. And when Anne draws that line, she becomes dangerous. Not because she wants authority, but because she threatens to remove it from the hands that have been quietly holding it. That's when the insider warning arrives, delivered like a confession from someone who has seen how the palace destroys people without ever admitting it. They'll call you disloyal and make it stick. The sentence doesn't sound dramatic, it sounds experienced. Because the palace doesn't always punish with exile. Sometimes it punishes with narrative. It turns your duty into defiance. It turns your caution into paranoia. It turns your truth into trouble. And once that label is planted, the system doesn't need to defeat you, it just needs to wait, while others step back from you. Then comes the statement. Measured, polished, reassuring. A promise of unity that feels strangely empty, like a smile held too long. Publicly it's routine, misunderstandings resolved, priorities aligned, family stronger than ever. The palace frames it as misconstrued, resolved internally, aligned. Words designed to soothe the public into forgetting the question before it forms. But inside the palace, nobody relaxes. Because William didn't just reveal Anne's plan, he proved something darker. The monarchy can be shielded by secrecy, or poisoned by it. Anne's plan remains, but the backlash sharpens behind the scenes like a knife being honed in silence. Catherine appears calm publicly, the way she has been trained to be. But privately the emotional weight deepens, because calm does not mean untouched. Staff culture shifts into something colder, more caution, fewer candid conversations, more fear of being overheard or misinterpreted. People begin moving like they're walking across thin ice, and that is how you know a palace has entered its most dangerous phase, when everyone is smiling and nobody feels safe. William's reckoning becomes unavoidable. Protect Catherine, or become the scapegoat for unrest. In royal systems, the truth teller is often punished not for lying, but for breaking the illusion of unity. And the most haunting twist is this: forever protection becomes a precedent others may fear. Because if Catherine can be safeguarded by structure, then others might demand the same. And the palace hates precedent it can't control. So the ending doesn't resolve, it lingers. A whisper moves through the corridors. The next conflict is already forming because the plan's existence exposed the threat, and exposed threats don't vanish. They adapt, they hide better. They wait for the next moment when attention shifts and the paperwork can move again. And if you think this ends here, remember, palaces don't forget secrets exposed. They simply wait for the next moment to rewrite the rules again. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.